In this lesson, we're going to look at what's called synthetic division. Now, synthetic division is just a shortcut. It's a shortcut way of dividing a polynomial by a divisor, by another polynomial where the divisor is of this form. So it has to be of this form. It has to be of the form x minus c. All right, so for example, if we look at this problem when you did long division before, so when you did long division, you see the x plus 1. So I can use synthetic division with this problem. I don't have to use long division. I can use synthetic division. Remember, synthetic division is just a shortcut way of dividing a polynomial by a linear factor as long as long as the coefficient of x is 1. This must be a 1. X, the coefficient of x must be 1. Okay, so that's why we use the expression x minus c. So the coefficient of x must be 1. So the divisor must be a linear factor, and the coefficient of x must be 1. So just to remind you, before we move on with this lesson, I can't use synthetic division with these divisors. All right, for example, 2x minus 5. I cannot use synthetic division of the divisors 2x minus 5 because remember, it must be x minus c. This is 2x. All right, so the coefficient of x is not 1. All right, so that's important. I can't use synthetic division with something like this, x squared plus 2, because this is not x. This is x squared. Okay, so it's very important. It's very important that you remember that you can only use synthetic division if your divisor is a linear factor and the coefficient of x is 1. Okay, so synthetic division is just a shortcut way of doing long division. All right, it's a quicker process. You don't have all these variables to deal with. All right. Now, in your Canvas course, though, in your Canvas course, I put in there the steps to synthetic division. So make sure you look at these steps. So there are basically 7 steps you're going to go through. And as we do an example, we're going to look at each of those steps. Okay? All right. So always remember, though, that to divide a polynomial using synthetic division, the divisor must be x minus c. All right. Okay. So let's look at the example we used just now. So let's go ahead and do this example. So we can divide 3x cubed minus 2x squared plus 2x minus 5 by x plus 1. Now, as we go through this process, I just want to show you what it's going to look like. It's going to look like this. This is synthetic division. Okay, so notice all this work, we can just use synthetic division, and this is all we have. And I want you to notice that this and this provides the same answer because watch. You see down here that last row? You see this 3? Remember, this is your quotient. Remember that's your quotient. So this 3 is a coefficient of x squared. This negative 5 is a coefficient of x. This 7 is your constant. And you might say, well, what's this negative 12? Well, negative 12 is your remainder. So whenever you use synthetic division, that last number is your remainder. So this right here is going to be your remainder. And these numbers to the left of it, will be the coefficients of your quotient. So 3, negative 5, 7. Okay? So as we go through these, we're going to do about 3 examples. As we go through these 3 examples, just remember what we just stated. Now you may say, well, what are these numbers here? Well, just think about this. I want you to think about this. And we're going to look at this as we go through the steps. But see that negative 3 right here? That negative 3? See, it's right above negative 2, right? Well, that's that negative 2 right here. So notice, you see the dividend 3, negative 2, 2, negative 5? That's this right here. 3, -2, 2, -5. So as you go through the process, all you're going to do is for your dividend, you're just going to write the coefficients. You're going to write those constants. 3, -2, 2, -5. And so notice that when you did that long division, see this -3 right here that I was referring to earlier? See, that's this right here. So remember when we, in previous problems, when I told you, I said it may be a good idea, I'm trying to find a red pen, it may be a good idea to write an equivalent expression. So remember when we said the opposite of 3x squared is -3x squared? Well, that -3 is just -3. Remember we said the opposite of a -5x? Because remember what happens is these parts cancel out. Remember that? And so the opposite of -5x is 5x. See that 5? That's just right here. The opposite of a +7 is a -7. See that -7? That's just right here. See, so there is a relationship between this long division and synthetic division. But synthetic division only works. It only works if if the divisor is a linear factor and the coefficient of x is 1. Okay? All right, so let's go through the process. All right, so remember, you need these steps in front of you. Okay, you need these steps. Okay, so let's do the first one. So I'm going to go ahead and use another sheet of paper. All right, so number 1, so the directions will say something like this. All right, use synthetic division to divide 3x cubed minus 2x squared plus 2x minus 5 by x plus 1. Now I can use synthetic division here because remember my divisor is a linear factor and the coefficient of x is 1. Okay? Now, one thing that you have to remember, and that is this. So when we go back to our first statement, it must be of the form x minus c. X minus c. This is x plus 1. So we have to remember, and it's important, this is important, you have to remember to rewrite this as x minus. So you got to change addition to subtraction. So x plus 1 is the same thing as saying x minus a -1. And this is your c. So c here is -1, not +1, -1. Okay? So that's something you got to remember about synthetic division, that many students are going to forget if they don't do enough problems, they're going to forget and say, well, c is a +1 when it's really a -1. So it's got to be of the form x minus c. Okay, x minus c. So whenever you look at your divisor, always think x minus. So it's if you have x plus a number, then think of this as x subtract the opposite. Okay? All right. So c is -1. All right. So let's look at step 1. So step 1 said this. Step 1 said arrange the polynomial in descending powers with a 0 coefficient for any missing term. All right, so that's the same thing we did with long division. Remember that with long division? So notice that these are already in descending order and there's no missing term. And this is in descending order as well. Okay, so that was step 1. Step 2 said this. Write c for the divisor x minus c. So my divisor is x plus 1, so c, remember, is -1. Okay, so c is -1. To the right, write the coefficients of the dividend. So this is going to be step 2. So step 2, this is what you're asked to do. So you're gonna start now writing it like this. Okay, so you're gonna write it like this. So here's your c, and then to the right, you're gonna write the constants of the dividend. Okay, all right. So you're gonna say -1, just like this. Watch, -1. Okay, then you're going to put kind of like a backwards L, kind of like this. So you're kind of making it inside of a box, but don't actually draw a box. Just do kind of like a backwards L. All right, so there's your C, and then to the right, write the coefficients of the dividend. So 3, and make sure it's in descending order, okay? So it's got to be in descending order because you want your first term, your first coefficient to be the leading coefficient. So 3, and you want the rest to be in that order, in descending order. So 3, negative 2, okay? The coefficient of x is a positive 2, and your constant is a negative 5. All right, so 3, negative 2, 2, negative 5. All right, so that was your step 2. That was step 2 that we just did. Okay, now step 3. So step 3 says this. Write the leading coefficient of the dividend on the bottom row. So write the leading coefficient of the dividend on the bottom row. All right, so what you're going to do now is this. You're going to leave it like an empty row right here. And then you're going to draw a line like this. And then what it's saying is you're going to bring this 3 down. So you're going to put it here. Okay? So write the leading coefficient of the dividend on the bottom row. All right, so that was step 3. Step 4. Multiply, let me do it here. So step 4, multiply C times the value just written in the bottom row. And then you're going to write the product in the next column in the second row. All right, so here's what that means. So you're going to take C and you're going to multiply by this. So negative 1 times 3 is a negative 3. Now remember when we talked about this earlier, see that negative 3 right here? Now remember where that comes from, okay? That comes from this right here. That right here. That negative 3 is this negative 3. That's where that comes from. Okay? And then step 5. Step 5, add the values in this new column, writing the sum in the bottom row. So negative 2 and negative 3 is a negative 5. Where does that come from? Well, it comes from this idea. So remember when we wrote the red right here, we said negative 2x squared and a negative 3x squared. When we added those, negative 2x squared plus a negative 3x squared is a negative 5x squared. That's what this is. Negative 2 and negative 3 is negative 5. All right, and then step 6 basically says this. Repeat the series of multiplication additions until all columns are filled in. All right, so let's go through this process again. All right, so you write the C here. Okay, you put your backwards L, and then to the right you put the coefficients of your dividend. Okay, make sure it's in descending order, and any missing term you got to put a 0. All right, so then you bring down your first coefficients. You bring down the 3, and then you multiply. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. You put that here, and you add. And basically now we're in step 6 where you're going to keep multiplying. So you're going to say negative 1 times negative 5. Okay, so negative 1 times negative 5 is a positive 5, and then you add them up. Negative 1 times a positive 7 is a negative 7, and you add them up. And you're done. You're done. So watch. Look. That's this right here, right? You're done. And remember we said that last number is your remainder. That last number is your remainder. So my remainder is negative 12. And so circle the remainder, so that way it will help you. So circle the remainder. So that means that these will be the coefficients of your quotient. So those are the coefficients of your quotient. Now, the problem with this for some students is they don't see any variables. In long division, you actually see your quotient. You actually see it. There's your quotient. There's your remainder. There's your divisor. There's your dividend. You see all of it. Here you don't. So then what you got to remember now is this. Since my divisor had a degree of 1, x to the first, when I divided x to the first into the leading term here, 3x cubed, so x into x cubed is x squared. So always when you write your quotient, now always remember that if my dividend, the leading term, was x cubed, my quotient will then be x squared. All right, so therefore your quotient will equal 3x squared minus 5x plus 7, and the remainder is negative 12. All right, now just remember how to write this. So you're going to write this as, 3x squared minus 5x plus 7 minus 12 divided by your divisor, which is x plus 1. All right, and remember, you've made the comparison now. See, this 3x squared minus 5x plus 7, that's what this is. Negative 12 divided by x plus 1, your remainder divided by your divisor. Okay? And that is synthetic division. That's all it is. You just got to remember, though, that you can only use synthetic division. You can only use synthetic division if my divisor is a linear factor and the coefficient of x is 1. Now remember, there was a step 7, but step 7, let me just remind you what it said, and we've already done step 7. But step 7 says use the numbers in the last row, so this row right here, to write the quotient, so quotient of the remainder. So remember, this is your remainder, circle that first, circle the remainder first, and then any numbers to the left of it will be the coefficients of your quotient. So if this is x cubed, then this will be 3x squared minus 5x plus 7. So you got to write this in descending order now. So x cubed, x squared, x, and your constant. Okay? All right. So those are your steps. So let's look at number 2. Number 2, let's look at this example for number 2. All right, so use synthetic division to divide 6x cubed plus x minus 1 by x minus 3. So I can use synthetic division with this because my divisor is a linear factor and the coefficient of x is 1. Notice, though, that I am missing an x squared term, right? So when I rewrite this, I need to put that missing term, okay? All right, so first thing you do, remember step 1 is to determine what C is. So determine what C is, and also make sure this is in descending order. So remember step 1, let me go actually show it to you. So step 1, arrange a polynomial in descending powers with a 0 coefficient of any missing term. So just remember this right here, 6x cubed plus 0x squared plus x minus 1, okay? And then step 2 is to write C for your divisor, okay? And then to the right, you got to write the coefficient of the dividend. So just remember that this is of that form x minus, right? So x minus C. So this is your C right here. So C is 3. Okay, so C is 3. So you're going to say 3, and remember that backwards L, and then you're going to write the coefficients you see here. So 6, 0, positive 1, negative 1. All right, and then step 3. Okay, let me get this. So here's step 3. So step 3 says write the leading coefficient of the dividend on the bottom row. All right, so that means you remember, don't forget to put that little horizontal line here. So you can bring down that 6 right below this, and then you're going to multiply. 3 times 6 is 18, and then you, let me go ahead and actually show you the step. So I forgot to show you that step. So then the next step would be to multiply C times the value just written. So 3 times 6, and then you're going to write that product in the next column. So 3 times 6 is 18. And then step 5 is where you're going to add the values of this new column. So 0 plus 18 is 18. Now notice that these numbers are becoming a little bit larger, so you may need a calculator if you have to. So then you're going to say 3 times 18. So you do the process all over again. 3 times 18. So 3 times 18 will give us 54. And then you put that number here. Then you add them up. 54 plus 1 is 55. And then you do the product again. So it's multiply, add, okay? So you're going to take C, you're going to multiply. And then you're going to put in the next column, you're going to add. Multiply, add, okay? All right, so 3 times 55, so 55 times 3 is 165. And then you're going to add negative 1 plus 165 is 164. Okay? And now you're done. So basically, you're going to circle, remember that last number is your remainder. So there's your remainder. Okay? And so now you get, so the numbers to the left will be the coefficients of your quotient. So remember, this was your dividend, right? So the largest exponent you saw was 3. So x cubed. So when you rewrite this, and let me kind of show you. So when you rewrite this, if you think about it in red, so this will be 6x squared. And this will be x, and that's your constant. Okay? So always think like that. So your quotient then will be 6x squared plus 18x plus 55. And your remainder is 164. And so when you rewrite this though, so usually it'll say divide like we did here. So you're going to say this. You're going to say the answer. You're going to say it will be 6x squared plus 18x plus 55 plus the remainder divided by the divisor, which is x minus 3. Okay? All right. So let's look at another one. All right, so let's do this one, number 3. So divide negative x cubed plus 4x squared plus 9 by x plus 3. So again, I can use synthetic division here because this coefficient of x is 1. So let's go ahead and remember we got to find c first. So be careful. Remember, it's got to be the form x minus c, right? So this is x plus. You got to remember this right here then means this. This right here means the same thing as saying x minus a negative 3. So this is your c. So c is negative 3. That's important. Okay, so then you're going to rewrite negative 3 backwards L, and then you're going to put the coefficients here. So remember, I am missing a term. I'm missing that x term. So remember, this is negative x cubed plus 4x squared plus 0x plus 9. Okay? And so you're going to write your leading coefficient. I'm sorry, you're going to write your coefficients here. So negative 1, positive 4, 0, and then 9. All right? So then remember the next step is to bring down that first number you see here, that leading coefficient. And then you multiply. You're going to put that number here. So negative 3 times negative 1 is a positive 3. And you add. So you're going to add these columns. So you're going to multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add. Okay? 4 plus 3 is 7. Multiply, negative 3 times 7 is a negative 21. Add, negative 21. Negative 3 times a negative 21 is a positive 63. And then you're going to add. 63 plus 9 is 72. So now there's your remainder. That's your remainder. And so these coefficients to the left will be your divisor. So your quotient, and remember, this is x cubed, so this is now going to be negative 1x squared. Okay, so remember, if you have to, if you need to, then put x squared here and put x here. Okay? Okay, remember, the degree here is always 1 less than the degree here when you use synthetic division. And the reason for that is because this degree here is 1. So x cubed divided by x is always going to be x squared. Okay? So your quotient is going to be negative x squared plus 7x minus 21. And your remainder is going to be 72. All right? Let's look at number 4. Number 4, let's suppose we had this for number 4. All right, so we have divide x to the 4th minus 10x squared minus 2x plus 4 by x plus 2. So I can use synthetic division because this coefficient of my linear factor of x is 1. So notice though, it is in descending order and there is a missing term. So I'm missing the x cubed, right? That looks like the only one I'm missing. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this as x to the fourth plus 0x cubed minus 10x squared minus 2x plus 4. Okay, so remember you got to determine what c is, so you got to be careful. So x plus 2 means the same thing as saying x minus a negative 2. So there's your c. So c is negative 2. Okay, that's important. You got to be careful. So then you're going to say negative 2, backwards L. Then on this side, you're going to put the coefficients you see here, the coefficient of the dividend. So 1, 0, negative 10, negative 2, and 4. Okay? So then you're going to draw your line here. Then you're going to bring down that leading coefficient. And then you're going to multiply. Negative 2 times 1, negative 2, then add. Multiply, add. Multiply, add. Okay? 0, negative 2 is negative 2. Then you multiply. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. Then you add. Negative 10 and 4 is a negative 6. Then you multiply. Negative 2 times negative 6 is a positive 12. Then you add, you get 10. Negative 2 and 12 is 10. Then you multiply. Negative 2 times 10 is a negative 20. And then you add, you get negative 16. So once you're done, this is your remainder. Okay? Now, so the coefficients to the left will be the numbers to the left, rather. The numbers to the left will be the coefficients of your quotient. So remember, and if you got to, draw it in red if you have to. So this will be the coefficient. Remember, this is x to the fourth, right? Your largest degree term is x to the fourth. You divided it by a linear factor. Notice x to the fourth divided by x is x cubed. Then you go through descending order. So x cubed, then this is going to be x squared, this is going to be x, and this is always your constant. See how that works? And so now your quotient will be x cubed minus 2x squared minus 6x plus 10, and your remainder will be negative 16. And then you're going to write your answer, though. Your answer will usually be written like this. So you're going to say x cubed minus 2x squared minus 6x plus 10 minus 16 divided by your divisor, which is x plus 2. Now, if you want to, you can write it like this as well. X cubed minus 2x squared minus 6x plus 10 plus a negative 16 divided by x plus 2. So that means subtracting positive 16 divided by x plus 2 means the same thing as adding a negative 16 divided by x plus 2. All right? Okay, so let's do one more. So this is not difficult. It's fairly easy. Also note that this will be important. Synthetic division will be important for finding zeros. So that's one of the uses for synthetic division. So in a lesson pretty soon, you're going to be asked to find zeros, okay? And synthetic division will be used in that process. Okay, so let's go ahead and divide using synthetic division. So we have this polynomial divided by this polynomial. So remember, that's your divisor. This is your dividend. So my divisor is x minus 2 is my divisor. So it's already that form x minus, right? So this is your c right here. So x minus c. So c is 2. Okay? So then we're going to put 2 in that little L shape, backwards L shape. And then we're going to put the coefficients of my dividend here. Now remember, it's got to be in descending order, and I don't have any missing terms. If I had a missing term, remember, you got to put 0. I don't have any here. X to the fifth, x to the fourth, x cubed, x squared, x, and your constant. Okay, so the coefficient of x to the fifth is 1. Coefficient of x to the fourth is negative 2. Coefficient of x cubed is negative 1. Coefficient of x squared is 3. Coefficient of x is negative 1. And your constant is positive 1. All right? So then you're going to draw your line. You're going to bring down your leading coefficient. And then you can do the process of multiplying, adding. Okay? So 2 times 1 is positive 2. then we add 0. 2 times 0 is 0. We add -1 and 0 is -1. 2 times -1 is a -2. Then we add 3 and -2 is a -1. 2 times -1 is -2. And we add -1 and -2 is -3. 2 times -3 is -6. And we add, we get -5. So once we're done with that process of multiplying and adding, remember this last number is your remainder. Okay, that's your remainder. And so these numbers to the left are the coefficients of your quotient. Now remember the coefficients of your quotients. Remember that your quotient, the leading term, the degree of the leading term is always 1 less than the degree of the leading term here. So if this is x to the 5th, then this must be x to the 4th. Okay? And the reasons for that is because your divisor, your leading term is x to the 1st. So x to the 5th divided by x is x to the 4th. It's always going to be that way whenever you use synthetic division, because synthetic division, you must always be dividing by a linear factor, and where the coefficient of x is 1. So what I would do is this. If this is x to the 5th, then I know this must be x to the 4th. See, I'm writing in red, and this will be x cubed, and this will be x squared, and this will be x, and this is your constant. All right? Okay, so your quotient is 1x to the 4th, or just x to the 4th. Now, see how this is 0x cubed? Don't put x cubed here. Okay, just leave it off because it's 0x cubed. Minus x squared minus x minus 3. See how I wrote it? Notice I don't have that x cubed because it's 0. All right, and your remainder will be -5. And so your answer, you're going to write like this. You're going to say your answer will be x to the 4th minus x squared minus x minus 3 plus the -5 divided by your divisor. Remember your divisor, if I can get to it, is right here. It's x minus 2. All right, so that's number 5. All right, number 6, we have x to the 4th minus 256 divided by x minus 4. All right, so c in this case, if you think about your divisor, so c in this case is 4, right? X minus c, so c is 4. All right, so then you're going to put 4, then you're going to put your backwards L. All right, now be careful here. There are quite a few missing terms. I'll see that. So remember, x to the 4th minus 256 means the same thing as x to the 4th plus 0x cubed plus 0x squared plus 0x minus 256. So you see all those missing terms? X to the 4th, x cubed is missing, I got to put 0. X squared is missing, I got to put 0. X is missing, I got to put 0. Okay? So then we have coefficient of x to the 4th is 1. Then I have 0, 0, 0, and then -256. All right, so let me say I have 3 zeros. So I'm going to put 3 zeros here. Those are my place values. Okay, so then you're going to then bring down your leading coefficient, and you're going to multiply. 4 times 1 is 4. Now you're going to add. 0 plus 4 is 4. Then you're going to multiply. 4 times 4 is 16. Then you're going to add 16. Then you're going to multiply. 4 times 16 is 64. Okay? And you're going to add. Okay, now at this point you may need a calculator. So go ahead, if you have to, go ahead and take out your calculator. And you're going to say 4 times 64. 4 times 64 will give us 256. And when I add, I get a remainder 0. All right, so now notice the remainder 0, right? So there's your remainder. And so now what that means then is that these numbers to the left will be the coefficients of my quotient. And so remember the largest degree here is 4, so that means the largest degree of my quotient will be x cubed. So there'll be x cubed, this will be x squared, and this will be x, and that's your constant. See how that works? And so therefore your quotient will equal x cubed plus 4x squared plus 16x plus 64. And your remainder is 0. Now your answer, just to remind you, if you recall long division, whenever you got a remainder of 0, your answer would just be your quotient. So you'd say x cubed plus 4x squared plus 16x plus 64. Okay, since the remainder is 0, you don't write anything else. That's your answer. Okay, so we're gonna that'll be the end of our problems here. But just to remind you, we're going to do some more with synthetic division, because one of the most useful purposes for synthetic division is to find zeros. So when we get into that lesson on zeros, we're going to come back to synthetic division. Okay, so that will be the end of this lesson.